A greeting from my side. Good evening to everyone who's joining me across from India, and very good morning to all of our participants who have joined us across from America. Now, today I will be your speaker for the evening. We will be really going into the details of passion projects and how can we really understand them, how can be used to elevate your profile for your top US college admission. So, over the next hour, we'll be going to transform the nebula of idea of a passion project into a clear step-by-step capstone that speaks volumes about who you are, your curiosity, your creativity, and very importantly, your commitment. Now, our roadmap, I will be just going through across it in a couple of minutes, but in an overall sense, we want to look at the application platforms. Definitely, we want to look into the narratives. So then we could understand what are the capstones that we'll be moving across into, and then as we go into all of our sessions with the approach and resources. But before we move across into the whole aspect of admissions abroad, I just want you to introduce you the organization that is at the center of all of the work. So let's Unbound began with a focus on skill building, which was helping students and empowering elementary and specifically middle school students with STEM, life skills, and mentorship programs. Now, as these students progressed into high school, they started to seek out college admissions guidance, and that's where we listen. We evolved our services to seamlessly integrate the storytelling through applications into our already well established mentoring program. Now, by combining personalized learning, skill development, and strategic admission support, we now guide students right from early academic years to their top global university aspirations. Today, we have impacted more than 4,000 students across 25 countries and have delivered more than 125,000 hours of expert mentoring. Our commitment to excellence has earned us a 4.9 over a 5 global rating. We are proud to have partnered with organizations as Harvard Students Agencies, Arizona University Prep Digital, where we have ensured that students have received world-class educational experience while preparing for their admissions abroad. At Let's Unbound, we don't just prepare students for exams or for admissions. We largely want to see our students preparing them for their life even beyond undergraduation. But before we move across onto the bulk of our presentation, just continuing with the introductions themselves to give you a quick understanding about our founders. On the left, you have Amol Patil, who's a serial entrepreneur and an education visionary. He's got experience at Tata and Exceed, which is India's largest edtech platform. Amol has helped scale impactful educational solutions across 2,000 schools with across in 6 countries and has really impacted more than 250,000 students. He's known for his ability to blend business thinking with on-ground school realities and has been instrumental in helping many startups from IIT Bombay and beyond succeeding in the education space. On your right, you got Nishant, who we call as Professor Nishant Chavla, a mentor and educator, and the real brains behind many of the learning pathways that we share with our students. With 14 plus years of experience across academy and industry, he has counseled more than 1,000 students and has designed curriculum solutions from K-12 to executive MBA programs. He's an alumnus of SP Jain, a top-rated educator and a proud member of Mentor of Change under Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog. Right, so that's the kind of people that have got the vision, who have given the vision of the organization. Now, just to quickly run you through my own profile. So I am an MBA with 12 years of experience within consultancy from investment to education. I had done my own MBA from Symbiosis, SCMHRD. I have worked with organizations as Jaguar Land Rover, Citibank, Standard Charter, and within the education space with Crimson Education and Added Education, where I got the whole understanding of admissions abroad, specifically within USA and larger Europe, with UK being the prime focus. Right. So that's more about the introductions of the people involved. And as I was saying, that our overall flow would be on these 4 topics, where we'd want to see what are the requirements behind all admission officers, what are the application platforms that are overall running, the capstone projects that really help students will go through with all of these applications, fulfill those requirements, will be the core of our conversation today. And then we will move across to our approach and lastly, the resources that we share across in every session of ours. Right now, just moving across to the admission process, which is going to be the core of our conversation in those terms that why are we doing those capstone projects? Because that's the primary question that should be coming across to all of the students who have joined us today. Why, what is a capstone? Why do we do it? But before we can actually move into those aspects, it's more important to understand the admission from the perspective of the admission officer as well. Now, we will be looking at the US admission process as well, the UK as well. Together they represent 55-60% of the top universities abroad. Starting across with USA first, a quick information. Declaration of major is not mandatory in USA. So your overall application is always accepted on your profile, on your overall narrative, and the profile that they look for is a well lopsided profile, which is different from well rounded. Well rounded says that every activity that you do is of the same, category or quality. Well, lopsided means the letter T, where you've got a lot of participatory activities and a few activities that show expertise. And that's what we call well lopsided, that lop that gets created, where a student can come across and say that this is a certain area where they're most passionate about, right? That's the first time that I'm using that word passion while we'll be discussing passion projects. So within USA, that loop that is being created or that strength area that we're creating is supposed to be is one thing that you need to remember when we go back into the capstone project discussion. Now, how do you communicate your profile to the admission officer? There are these 5 pillars that you need to think across on in terms for USA, where the first one being academics, as across with all applications, your entrance exam, your grade 12 scores from 9th till 11th, and then English proficiency test. Moving across to 10 to 20 activities, dependent on the platform that you're using in terms of USA. UCs have a 20 activity list. The common application has got a 10 activity list. So anyway, between these two are the amount of activities that you need to think across on moving from academic to non-academic. And this is one area where I would say you should be really attentive towards while we're talking about your capstone projects or your passion projects. These 10 to 20 activities is exactly where they will be represented in. Now, then moving on to the third column, which is your personal statement, essays overall, where the first one being the common app essay or the personal statement, how it's normally referred to, along with your supplementary college essays, which are submitted to all individual colleges that you would be, ideally applying for. So, for example, Harvard would have its own couple of essays, and you'd submit a few to Princeton. You would then submit a few to, let's say, University of Chicago. All of these different universities will be giving out a list of essays in which you select from, and you will be then submitting it. Now, on your essay level, the kind of work that is happening is the activities that you just described in pillar number 2 within your activities are being made into a personified level when you talk about your personal statement. And do remember, you don't talk about all 10 activities. You talk about the 10 of the most important. So within those 10, if you've got 3, 4, 5 of the most important, and that's another way of calling your capstone projects, are the ones that find a reflection on the personal statement. Because our imagination is that your capstone project or your passion project, as you're also referring it today, are those prime activities that describe you. So you'd see this one element of passion project is not just in the 10 activities, but will also find a weightage, a space within the personal statement. And they may just be a few that also make it all the way up to your college essays. And then once all of these documents are submitted, these are all the documents that a student writes, you move over to the letter of recommendation. Now, if your teacher can speak about the highest ranked or the top 2 or 3 ranked passion projects or capstone projects, that typically closes the whole application because you have described you have given information of the activity in pillar number 2, you have personified it in pillar number 3, and the teacher has gone ahead and has given a verification about that activity in then pillar number 4. So beyond this, you do not really require another level of certification to really showcase the passion and intrigue that you've had in it. And lastly, there may be situations with interviews where that again passion project may find its space coming through. So even though it may be said that it only forms one part of your application, but in reality, it goes right across all the pillars because that is one activity that can be really used to define you as a person. Right now, how does the admission officer see the whole application? He puts 40% to the academics, if you see on the right side of your screen, whether it's your academic, SAT score, predictive grades, your grades from 9 till 11, proficiency test, all of that is just 40%. If you compare that to, let's say, a joint entrance exam, where the joint entrance exam itself would be 95% and 5% in terms of your grade 12 score. Why do I say this? If you've gotten, let's say, a top 10 rank in joint entrance exam and you have 71% in grade 12, you'd be admitted into any IIT. In terms of MIT, just having a 1600 over 1600, having 95, 98% in your grade 12, 9, 11 is not enough. They will be looking in those 10 to 20 activities that you'll be talking across on. How have those capstone projects and passion projects really gone ahead and described you at the next 30% as well? So 60% of the US admission process are activities that you're doing beyond your entrance exam, beyond your grades in school. And this is where identifying that right kind of project is extremely crucial for your whole application, specifically when looking towards the US routing. Now, just to showcase, right, how important, your extracurriculars or this whole 60% is, I'm just showing you very quickly the Stanford loop, one straight loop of an admission cycle, where you'd see 100 students apply. Only 3 kids get rejected due to low grades because A, that tells you that 97% of the students that you would be competing with are kids with good grades. Where majority of the rejection happens, the 82%, is at extracurriculars. The way the person has gone ahead and described his passion project, described his personality, is the area where majority rejections happen. And that's where this presentation becomes extremely important while you're looking towards USA as an option. Right. So that's the overall narrative in terms of USA, that it is going to be extremely focused in terms of your profile because it's not mandatory to declare majors. Once they're looking at your profile, they're going to be looking at your activities, academic, non-academic, 10 to 20 of them, which you describe on a personal statement. You again describe on an essay, maybe a very lucky situation that it also pops up on your letter of recommendation. And the reason why all of this is important, because 60% of US admissions is really looking at things beyond your school syllabus. Now, we'll quickly move over to the next country, which is UK. Now, how does UK look into an overall application? So UK, the first differentiator from USA is that UK, it is mandatory to declare your majors. Right, you have to clarify exactly what you're going to come and study. It's very similar to India. Once you have declared that major, your entrance exam may also vary. A law student will be giving LNAT, a medicine student will be giving UCAT, someone who's studying, for example, economics or finance at Oxford may be giving TSA. So there are various different exams that are, conducted in UK for the purpose of admissions, but they all really root from the decision, what are your majors? Once you have declared this, in UK, the admission officer is largely going to be looking across at all of those various activities that go ahead and describe your overall profile in terms of the major you're studying. So the profile that they're looking for example, if you've declared computer science, what are those various things that really describe the student as a perfect fit for computer science? What is your passion in that area? Can you show across some evidence of, let's suppose, I gave the coding example, but also let's suppose, for example, any experiences within mathematics, right? Have you done any courses in that and have shown some amount of rigor and also went ahead and taken APs, right? Do you have resilience that those activities have gone ahead right starting from grade 9 to grade 12 that you can really talk across on, and they're also academically oriented in the major that you'd be studying? So the difference between UK and USA is the declaration of major. USA selects you for your profile. UK will select you for the activities that are extremely in line with the major that you are studying. So again, your capstone projects, if I don't call them passion projects, yet again are extremely important for your UK application as well. Now, just moving across, how do you communicate your application in terms of UCAS, the platform for UK, which allows you 5 applications? You would be first talking about the first pillar, which is the academics pillar, very similar to the US academics pillar that you have you have entrance exam. The difference is that the entrance exam in UK will be major based. In USA, your entrance exams are SAT or ACT regardless of the major. Apart from that, your grade 12 scores, your grades from 9 till 11, your English proficiency score, as it was important in USA, is also going to be creating that form in academics in UK application as well. Now, since you are really talking about your majors, they're not really interested in activities beyond the major. So they have got a personal statement, which from the current year, they have changed over from a singular question to three questions, which is extremely focused on why do you want to study the course that you're studying? What are the activities that you have done in that major that really puts you into that right place of being selected for this major? So again, they want to know about capstone projects. They want to know about your passion projects. And that's how those three questions are really framed across, that if you want to study medicine, so what have you done about medicine? What is your interest in chemistry? What is your interest in biology? And how do you really come across and say that that also really parts, no, I mean, sorry, really creates a very strong part about my personality. So that's your UK again, if not moving in terms of just, let's say, a pure passion project, but definitely a capstone project, definitely a major oriented project is something which is very, very important for your UK applications. Now, within UK, because there's no, let's say, match that is required in terms of your personality and the university personality, they do not have essays. They only have a document, a three-question document, which is a personal statement. And from that point onwards, they've got a letter of recommendation. So even on this level, you'd see the narrative is still remaining the same as the US one, where you have given your grades, you're talking about some important activities, passion projects, capstone projects, which are being created in terms of a narrative in a personal statement. The same thing happened in USA as well. In terms of UK, you only have one letter of recommendation, and it is very ideal that that letter of recommendation does talk about your academically oriented passion projects. Right. So this is how I would say the requirement of a passion project or a capstone project in terms of a UK application is also being created. Right. They do focus 75% on your academics, but there's a 25% focus which goes onto your supercurricular activities. Supercurricular are those activities that are done in line with the major that you're studying. So, for example, you want to study computer science. So, an MUN is an extracurricular. But if you are doing, for example, a hackathon, if you're doing courses in computer science, these are all supercurricular activities. So all of those academic, non-academic activities, those passion projects that are in line with your major do hold 25% of the weightage, even for your UK applications on the lower side. Now, we will move on to the next part of our conversations where we have really established the requirement of you to do the passion project, right? Either you're applying to USA and you're really talking, you're trying to create that well lopsided profile, trying to show interest, trying to show passion in some certain activities. Because do remember, in your 10 activities, you will have to write there how many hours a week do you do that activity? How many weeks a year do you do that activity? Have you been doing that since grade 9, 10th, 11th, or 12th? So that's how they're just starting with that aspect of your passion within that activity. So for you then to understand and realize which are your top three, top four activities that really start from an early stage of grade 9 can show a lot of our commitment to it are the prime things that you need to think about passion project in USA. Passion project in UK as a summary would be, this is my major that I want to study, for example, computer science. Then what are those passion activities that I can show across in computer science? I want to study economics, so the same narrative. What can I show in economics? If it's changing over to mechanical engineering, what can I show in mechanical engineering? But how, so overall, the idea is how do I show the passion for the application that I'm putting through? So in both of those applications, a passion project is going to be extremely important. Now, what is a passion project? So first up, let's try to define this. A passion project is something you drive entirely on your own, something you choose simply because it really excites you. It isn't really assigned by a teacher, right? It isn't really just tied by a club requirement that you started doing. It's really born out of a spark of curiosity. Right, it's like that. It's as I normally like to tell with a lot of students, these are very crossroad points in your profile. For example, you have got this extreme interest in music. You play an instrument. You want to do computer science. Can we create a project amalgamating both of these interests? Right? Can we create an instrument, computer science based, helping a student to play a specific instrument, helping a student to sing? I'm just a cuff of my sleeve kind of idea. We needs a lot of deliberation when you are merging two or three of your characteristics to create that right kind of passion project. Now, next, we'll talk about the key characteristics. So, passion projects are 100% student led. You set the goals, you sketch the plan, you have to carry it through every phase. They result in tangible outcomes, whether it's, let's say, a working prototype, or it's a published article, or it's about a community based event that you're organizing. So, and crucially, you reflect on your overall journey. You document what you've learned, you iterate it based on the feedback, and you try to show how you have grown across while working on it. And finally, you should consider the forms and impact of your project that it might take. So maybe you embark on an original research that uncovers new insights. Maybe you launch a community startup that involves real world need, or perhaps you could also create a piece of art, a short film, a digital experience that really captures your own unique vision and idea about those different intersections that you may have created. So, whatever form or passion your project demonstrates initiative, it should showcase the depth of interest and leave a lasting impression. These are exactly the qualities that a top college's admission officers ideally looking across for. Right. So your passion project should really go ahead and define you as the person. And for doing so, you need to be controlling every aspect of that project itself. Now, why is it important, since we know we have gone ahead and established what it is? So passion demonstrates a genuine curiosity, initiative, resilience, all those qualities, as I was saying, that a top college admission officer is looking for. So when you take ownership of a self-driven endeavor, admission officers see your ability to identify real problems, set your own goals, and persist through challenges. And that's when you take two or three different aspects about your profile, and when you merge them, you're very assured to create an activity that really stands out, that really identifies you from that whole application. So, unlike in class assignment, these projects require you then to go on and even learn new skills on your own, adapt to when things go off the plan, and really push back through those setbacks. And giving stories of setbacks during your passion project goes on to make your whole application more human-like, and it also makes the admission officer really realize the resilience that I was also speaking at the last couple of on slides about the resilience that you're really trying to put through with the passion project that you want to work on. Now, they also showcase authenticity, sustained interest, leadership, and a real world application. A passion project isn't one off event precisely. It's not just something that you have done in grade 12. We need to pick up those activities that can show continuity right starting from grade 9 and onwards. It's a multi phase journey that highlights your commitment over weeks and over months. And that's why on common application, they have this question: how many hours a week do you do it? How many weeks a year do you do it? So whether you're organizing a community initiative, developing a technical prototype, or publishing original research, you demonstrate not only what you know, but how have you led, collaborated, and applied the knowledge to make an impact in the real world. Lastly, they help students to stand on beyond those test scores and grades in a pool of applications with similar GPAs, similar SAT scores. You get 3 attempts on them where they take your super scoring, they take the best of your English, the best of your maths. So having a 1500, 1550, or a 1600 kind of a SAT score is not a unique proposition. Well executed passion projects really then becomes your unique story, your why that can be quantified beyond your numbers. It gives you a concrete evidence of intellectual curiosity and personal drive, and it really provides rich material for your essays, your interviews, your recommendation. So it puts you in this very, very strong space. Now, while we're discussing, and we've had these two last slides that we've just gone through, that what is a passion project, why does it matter? Let's now try to see how does an admission officer from Stanford really describe the same aspect. So this is a admission officer that I had worked with previously in an organization from Stanford University. And one of my prime questions to the gentleman was that how do you really select between different projects? I mean, for example, there is a student who really talks about music, and then there's another kid who has got an extreme interest within sports. And then you realize that both of these activities are very oceans apart from one another. And how do you make a selection of saying that one qualitative work as a sport is better than another qualitative sport activity as music and make a selection between them. And this is where he had shown me these notes, which all of these admission officers do typically carry as an understanding for admissions. And this is what he was saying, that what we look through these passion projects is intellectual vitality. And intellectual vitality is something, and I'm just paraphrasing for you, all of you guys. So intellectual vitality is oftentimes an aspect which is easier to identify, rather define in very specific words, because it takes various forms. Doing a lot of advanced placements, college courses, long-term papers, or academic summer research projects does not guarantee the intellectual vitality, nor does it really guarantee the active enjoyment and engagement in that activity itself. And lastly, if you see here, it is also not distinctive in their application pool. Now, at times I ask students while I'm working with them, do you think a head boy or a head girl role is distinctive? And it's very natural for students to believe it's distinctive from their perspective. But if you see from the perspective of an admission officer at a top college at Stanford, and let's imagine 2 lakh good schools out there, every year you would have 4 lakh good head boys and head girls pass out. Right? If let's suppose 5% of them apply, which is 20,000, out of those 50,000 applications at Stanford, almost every second application is of a head boy and a head girl. And so it is distinctive from your side of you to do a research paper, for you to do an internship, but it is not distinctive from their side. When it becomes distinctive is when you show the long-term engagement in that activity. When you show a lot of time commitment in that activity, you show learning, you show setback. And those are all of those descriptions that I was giving about a passion project. The whole intellectual vitality that is being described on your screen really talks about the passion the student has had, where he has assumed significant responsibility of their own learning process. If you see that point that I was just reading out, the strong intellectual vitality demonstrated by students who assumed significant responsibility of their own learning process, did a research paper to understand the correlationship between malnutrition and miscarriage, created an instrument that helped a kids to learn violin, created an apparatus to teach kids how to swim, right? Where you show maturity and self-discipline in fulfillment of a project, often well beyond the limitations of a school assignment. That is where you're trying to show that right kind of passion. All of those activities that are connected to that kind of level of I would say of intrigue is the thing that they're looking for. So this is just to give you an overall example of, let's say, how does a Stanford admission officer is looking at this passion. Now for the next one, I'll just firstly run you through with this YouTube quick video. So just have a quick
That was some oscilloscope art I generated by visualizing the audio from synthesizers as the X and Y components of the display. Hi, I'm Anhad Sani, and these are my projects. Many of the things I build involve unmanned aerial vehicles, like the solar-powered plane from my internship at the Charles Draper Laboratory. Or my latest project, these drones and custom virtual reality headset, which give me a 3D first-person piloting experience. Making PCBs is a key component of many projects. Being able to build compact, precise, and reliable electronics is essential to taking a project from prototype to effective solution. Once the components are placed on the board, it's ready for baking in this toaster oven I modified for reflow soldering. All right, we have a control board for my longest running project, the drone swarm. I have taken this to 3 hardware revisions, designing a custom flight controller, calibrating the thrust of each motor, and creating my own algorithm to integrate accelerometer data into velocity while compensating for orientation changes and drift. There are many more projects in the PDF and on my website, like the robot from last season's first tech challenge, this simulation of Conway's Game of Life that I implemented on an FPGA, these microfluidic devices that I 3D printed using stereolithography, or this Java software I wrote to render fractals using high-performance graphics processing hardware.
Right. So that was just to give you a live example of someone, of a student within the MIT Maker portfolio. So this optional component is really designed as specifically for those applicants who have undertaken substantial or hands-on projects in engineering, technology, or your applied sciences. So MIT admission team wants to see you to think and create something outside the classroom. The Makers portfolio gives you the chance to showcase original work that you have designed, built, and programmed for yourself. It is submitted through the slide room after you've submitted the main application. So do plan your timeline accordingly. The criteria, your project should be substantial, meaning it's more than just a weekend prototype. It might take a span of months of research, design iterations, multiple versions, and physical device or software itself. And you really need to be original. You're not repackaging a kit project from the real world that really exists. Admission officers want to see your own ideas and a problem solving approach. It must demonstrate technical creativity. It should show the engineering decisions that you have made, the algorithms that you have written, or the innovative materials that you have really experienced well. So these are the various, two ways of really showcasing that part that I was talking in terms of your passion project. Now we'll just, sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, now we'll just move across to the next part, which is of brainstorming your project. So this is a very important stage that, we sometimes tend to overlook. We would really want to see how your whole flow typically runs across at. So step one, what you need to do, you need to identify your core interests. So the first bullet, you need to write 3 to 5 subjects or activities that you're really genuinely excited about, maybe in coding, environmental sciences, robotics, creative writing, or whatever that lights you up. Now, so for example, interest A might be data analytics and data sciences, while B may be something in sports. Now, keep that list handy and keep it like your idea engine. Step two is to identify your possible gaps or identify those possible, areas that you could go create a, let's say, a crossover between these two aspects. So you need to think in terms of, for example, let's say, could you create a real-time application, right? Could you create a computer vision system as well around sports, around the activity that you're thinking across? Can we bring in machine learning module to it as well? Can it be a wearable device that, measures force and limb angles during the sprints themselves? So those are the ways that you need to typically work, identify your interest, make a list of them, and then try to create crossovers between them. Then you move over to the next part, which is then you have to really assess their feasibility and impact. So we score each idea on ease, on learning value, on impact, on a scale of 1 to 5. Then you total them out of 15. You'd notice the ML model to predict Olympic level performance leads the pack to 3 for ease, 5 for learning of value, 5 for impact, totaling all the way up till 13. That clear data driven ranking helps you pick the strongest concept. And then we move across to step number 4, which is select and refine your top idea, where you'd be using those various instruments and tools then to take it across forward. With these steps and bullet points, you can really look at your narrative. You'll be able to show exactly how you have moved from brainstorming to the polished, high impact passion project that is ready for your college admission applications. Now, just quickly moving across to this one other idea of, let's say, in terms of your planning and acquisition, think or walk through your SMART goals, right? Which is specific, A, which is designing and building and complete, let's say, the whole Arduino powered plant watering robot that autonomously monitors and waters soil. Then measurable would be in this case scenario. So you'd validate a soil moisture reading with, let's say, plus to 5% margin across the test runs by week 6. It should be achievable. You should have your Reno kit, the 3D printer lab, and weekly mentor check-ins right here at the school. Then you should see how relevant it is becoming and the time bound of it. At the same time, you need to be looking across at the timelines and also try to see your top 3 hurdles and mitigation and a complete mitigation plan on it as well while seeing through with the risk plan. Right. Now, just moving across to the next part where documentation and reflection are extremely important. So the first aspect is, though, the first bullet point would be maintain a project journal, either within call it Google Docs or Notion. So every time you tweak the code or test a new sensor or adjust the robot's chassis, log the date, what has changed, why this running narrative becomes the backbone for your overall story. Secondly, you need to be collecting evidence. Snap photos of each stage of your prototype. Save the data on charts that stack soil, for example, that would be, looking at the overall growth of the project itself. Gather testimonial quotes from your mentors and your community around you. These visuals and numbers are really proof points of how your project has come across in terms of life. Then overall, have constant monthly reflection. So at the end of every 4 weeks to 5 weeks, really see what has worked well with you. What are the challenges that has cropped up? What are the new skills that have learned from them? Keep on jotting down these insights. Admission officers would love to see not just what you have built, but how have you gone ahead to build it and have come back from every different setback. So very important for you to be writing those setbacks as well. Now, with these three bullet points, you would be really able to showcase your activity in the description section of your personal statement, in your essays, and obviously, if it gets to the right level in terms and also goes across to your letter of recommendation. Now, just moving across to which are the common pitfalls that you could avoid. So, really do avoid over scooping. Don't bite more than you can actually chew. Don't try to create a project which is absolutely impossible for an undergrad, for a school going student. So starting with a giant all-in project might sound exciting, but it really does risk you burning out and also not completing it to the right level. Instead, pick up a small, manageable core first, prove your concept, and then to try to scale that up. Secondly, shallow involvement. Admission officers look always for depth over breadth of various different activities. Show sustained engagement rather than, let's just say, 1 week of events. It's better to lead a single project for 9 months than to touch base 10 different projects, all in very brief manner. Lastly, neglecting reflection. Without introspection, you lose so what? What makes this part of your story so compelling? Always pause after a milestone to ask yourself, what did I learn? How did I grow? What reflective practice is what turns a project into, let's say, from a checklist into a proper narrative of personality development. With these pitfalls in mind, and by really, explicitly calling them out in your overall activity, you demonstrate to the colleges that you are not only planned for with a strong project, but you also understand how to navigate the real world challenges themselves. Right. Now, how do we go ahead and showcase your passion project? How do we really build that right kind of credential? So one of those ideas that we typically do put out is to look at various kind of competitions. So firstly, what are they? They're global youth on various competitions, sometimes in entrepreneurship, sometimes let's say within your sciences, within STEM, wherever the key area that you're interested, your focus area that you're interested, you can be looking at various international stages where your big ideas would go ahead and matter. Why compete? So at all of these kind of competitions, you're able to showcase leadership, you're able to showcase creativity, problem solving, and really at a lot of times when you do an international competition on a worldwide stage. And that really personifies the activity and the passion that you're really trying to showcase across all. Then lastly, the third bullet, it strengthens your college application with real world with real world practical experience of the idea that you're doing in or are trying to work across with really does help you. So for example, showing case a blue ocean competition while you're thinking about a degree within entrepreneurship, where you might be thinking of a degree within finance, can be a core to your application, where you may also be thinking about something within engineering and you've created something which is extremely innovative in that way. Lastly, your benefits in terms, it also does give you a good access in terms of expert mentorship, in terms of feedback on your overall activity that you're doing. Because the more you're participating on a global level, the more you would be opened up to, various network of peers, judges, industry leaders, and also you are in very access to your like-minded students that are looking out for admissions at that same kind of level. Right now, the competition journey itself, right, it is extremely important because it showcases that you have identified a problem and you have come across with an innovative solution, which, for example, the blue ocean gap analysis is a very crucial aspect to. It also helps you to develop various viable models. So this is one close example again for blue ocean, where while working on a complete new strategy, you talk about that viable business model itself. It would help you create various different activities, and it really does showcase the overall application in the right way. Now, beyond competitions, you do also look across in terms of research and internship, where you could, work with a faculty mentored research on a faculty mentored research project, or work with real world internships. So either on site or virtual, these experiences immerse you into the cutting edge inquiry and professional workflows. So you're not just learning theory, you're also doing the real science and industry work behind it. Now, one of those reasons why pursue it, it demonstrates again intellectual vitality, initiative, and discipline, traits again which top university admissions officers really prize for above everything else. And thirdly, it generates publishable work, conference posters, and tangible deliverables which you could showcase in your application portfolios. Now, another thing that your research and internships really do help you is to help you with high impact programs and various sites that you could be exploring across on. So, you do have your MIT Primes, you do also have your RSI, which is a 6 week residential summer research project at MIT, which is really there for the top 100 high school students worldwide. There are a lot of internships that you could look interns from NASA as well, where many of them are to be actually earned and not bought. At the same time, you could also look at remote startup internships. So they are very selective virtual placements via platforms as Ladder internships. So they really help you in a couple of weeks of participation on a startup idea, on a startup project around engineering, around marketing that you could really work across on. So those are, couple of activities and ideas that you could look across while creating your capstone project. Now, just to run you through with our approach overall in terms of admissions, we largely work with kids from an area or a standpoint where I would say 93% of them really don't know about any other career beyond seven. And then to navigate through this whole college applications across various different countries becomes quite of a challenge. So how do we work? We start with the basics of inputs, understanding the student, understanding the personality and interest, and then we move over to the process of psychometric testing. Then we help the student in terms of college counseling, help them build their profile, and then eventually to your application and post application. We do also help with complete visa guidance, where the output then eventually becomes the admission. These are all the various other activities that we do spread across the three pillars that we work in: your academics and test prep, profile building, and admission preparations. Right. This is just to show you a overall idea of a timeline of a student that prepares with us, let's say ideally from grade 9, where those initial years we help them in understanding their strengths, understanding their interest. We make them join various clubs, courses, and competitions, and have this constant personal statement session or personal reflection session run across till grade 11, where we also help you in different subject selections in your capstone projects and eventually your entrance exams. Grade 12 then becomes a complete focus in the correct representation of your profile through those applications, where in your 12th, around October, November is when the applications start, and all of your applications would end when you are in your March or Feb of your grade 12. Right. Now, just to showcase a couple of success stories of students that have worked with us. So this is a kid that I had personally worked with. He had went to Dartmouth. He had worked on various different passion projects as founding an NGO. He was a national level basketball player. He had participated and earned recognition on the essay competition at Oxford. He was also a talented solo singer and had performed at various charity events and eventually went into Dartmouth. This is another example of a kid that went into RISE. She became the chairperson of the Model United Nations after excelling in roles like delegate, press secretary, and communications head. And while applied to Rice University and was encouraged to pursue the scholarship in Women in Leadership category. And currently, the student is at that specific college. Now, in terms of the resources, so every weekend we conduct a different master class, a different session on various different aspects of admission. So this week, as you should have just gone through with us, we were discussing on passion projects. Next weekend, we will be picking up a different topic. You could also use the QR code at the bottom of your screen to just get in touch with all of these newsletters that we constantly post out. I'm also just using the chat section to drop you the link that you could also save and keep with you. So, you could access all of this information through that written platform. And at the same time, these are two other platforms. We've got, the podcast that you could join through that QR code and the WhatsApp group through the other QR code. Right now, if you want to get in some detailed information personally on an individual level, understand passion projects from the point that you are currently working on, you could use the QR code and you could, log in and book a one-on-one session with our various strategists. So, right, this is the end of our session today. I have left out the last 15 minutes for Q&A. If there are any questions that you would have, you could just point them out now. Right, so I'll just be stopping the share immediately. So then you could ask any questions if there are any. I'm just using the chat section to look at any questions that you may be asking us across. Right. So since there are no questions, we are concluding the session for today. Thank you for joining across. I hope you found the session useful. And if you want further information, you could always get in touch with our team and we will run you through the one-on-one session. Thank you.